In the scale of priority as far as human existence is concerned, shelter inches very close to food. Indeed, the importance of shelter to human existence is strongly reinforced in the Nigerian Constitution, a portion of which expressly states that citizens of the country are entitled to be provided with suitable and adequate shelter. It is, however, a sad commentary to note that despite the fact that Nigeria has been vigorously sensitized from 1987, which was declared by the United Nations as the International Year of Shelter for the Homeless, and the Housing for All campaign by the year 2000, Nigeria still suffers a serious housing deficit, with an astronomically abysmal shortfall in habitable housing for majority of Nigerians. In terms of professionals with in-depth knowledge in the areas of housing, urban planning and development, Nigeria has some of the best qualified hands in these fields, whose views are indeed respected globally. These professionals have over the years taken the issue of the provision of shelter for the masses as a national call to service, with consistent engagement of the various governments both at the national and state levels, with well thought out solutions to our housing problems. Policy inconsistencies and the political will to effect the necessary changes are the twin negative albatross which have retarded Nigeria's growth in the housing, urban planning and development sectors for decades. To quote YACOOB ABIODUN, an accomplished town planner, as doctors attend to the sick and the lawyers promote the rule of law, urban planners should advocate the orderly development of our towns and cities and protection of our fragile environment. Indeed, YACOOB ABIODUN, who has proper academic grounding in housing, urban planning and management matters, with a master's degree in urban studies from the Long Island University, Broken Center, New York, United States of America, and Rutgers State University, New Jersey in the United States, where he also bagged a bachelor's degree in geography, has championed advocacy for affordable housing and improved urban planning practice in Nigeria in the last 30 years. YACOOB ABIODUN, who has notched up over 3 decades working experience in the area of housing, urban planning and development, retired in 2006, is a member of the American Planning Association (APA), Nigerian Institute of Town Planners (NITP), and a registered town planner with the Town Planners Registration Council. YACOOB ABIODUN has played the role of an ombudsman, a whistleblower, and indeed a one-man intellectual route squad since 1984 through his highly incisive and illuminating write-ups showcasing over 14 newspapers. This is intended to trigger improvement in the planning, housing, and urban development areas. The well-researched write-ups, 58 articles in all, published between 1984 and 2013, which had 4 broad sub-themes: human settlement, housing, urban planning, management, and sustainable development, has been published into a book entitled Affordable Housing and Urban Planning Practice in Nigeria, an Advocacy for Change. The book was formally presented to the public on Thursday, 27 March 2014, at a well-attended event which took place at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Victoria Island, Lagos. The chairman of the event, Mr. Wole Okufulure, a former director of the defunct Housing and Urban Development Ministry, in his opening remarks, reminisced on his relationship with YACOOB ABIODUN, whom he described as a cultured, cerebral, and very focused person who contributed in no small measure to all he was able to achieve as a leader of the team at the time. He congratulated him on the launch of the book, which he said has come at the right time.
I worked in Abuja. I was seconded to Abuja in 1976 when the capital FCDA was created as the first professional member of staff, and we were involved in the planning. We appointed the consultants and we did all the dirty work and all the dangerous work. At the time when there was no road to Abuja, we were flying in small Cessna planes, landing in Minna, the capital of Niger State, and we were going on boat rides across the River Niger in Lokoja. dangerous, but it was fun because at that time, 76, I was just married for 1 year. And I was not scared of anything. But God was on our side, and we thank God as we get to it.
The executive governor of Ondo State, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, who also had a close working relationship with the author during his tenure as minister, through his representative, gave a goodwill message in which he congratulated the author, YACOOB ABIODUN, for the intellectual expose he undertook to properly position housing, urban planning, and development matters in Nigeria. Governor Olusegun Mimiko also shared with the audience efforts of his administration to give Ondo State people a new lease of life in the era of improved housing and urban planning and management.
There is the urgent need to redefine urban planning in Nigeria, and Mr. ABIODUN is a great advocate of this. We need to revisit our planning standards. We need to reconsider issues of legislation, and I'm happy that our senators are here. Mr. ABIODUN has contributed his own quota. I wish all other planners here, stakeholders and non-planners, to rise up and contribute to the emerging issues of planning sustainable cities in Nigeria.
Professor Johnson Bade Falade, who was a program manager for Nigeria's UN Habitat Program between 2003 and 2012, described the author, YACOOB as an astute, dedicated, vibrant practitioner and prolific advocate on housing, urban development, and management matters. And the book, Affordable Housing and Urban Planning Practice in Nigeria, Advocacy for Change, as an invaluable resource material for both professionals and laymen alike.
During his service years, he served as a member of several national committees, which inter alia include the Planning Committee on the Formulation of Charter Strategies for Nigeria for the International Year of Charter for the Homeless in 1984. He was a member of the Implementation Committee of the National Site and Services Program in 1987. He was a member of the National Planning Committee on Habitat 2 in 1990. That was the time I first met him. Member of Committee on Federal Government Property in Lagos in 1996. Member of Committee on Reform of Withdrawals from UNPADEC in 1998, and member of Presidential Committee on Lagos Beach Short Line Erosion Problem in 2004.
Accomplished town planner Alhaji Wahid Kadiri, who was the national president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners between 2006 and 2008, national president, Association of Town Planning Consultants of Nigeria between 2003 and 2006, and the incumbent chairman of African Planning Association, in his review of the book, commended the courage of the author for standing firmly on the side of the people through his consistent advocacy for change in the housing and urban planning sector of the country, what the somewhat hard stance town planner YACOOB had taken in his write-ups in the media, which were mostly critical of government policies, even though he was a government employee. Town planner Wahid Kadiri had very generous words for the author's all-encompassing introspection in the whole gamut domain to housing, urban planning and management, like human settlement, sustainable environment, to governance. He concluded that with this book, ABIODUN has properly portrayed town planners as professional thinkers who are self-appraising and dispassionate. He then recommended the book for scholarly use by university students and all stakeholders in matters concerning housing, urban planning, and development. This way, we can benchmark our practice in the sector in tandem with globally acceptable standards.
That the issue of housing made up the first and largest section is not a surprise if it is appreciated that housing is, in whatever context you see, is of importance to individuals, families, groups, and even governments. It has become major societal issue and political concern even in Nigeria, with our questionable welfare stance over the years. More significant is the author's posting in his civil service career as the Secretary of the Housing Policy Council of Nigeria? Is it because of his interest in housing that he became the Secretary of Housing Policy Board? Or is it because he was Secretary of the Housing Board that he got interested in housing?
In the author's remarks, which he titled "Make Noise and Make a Difference," he again reiterated that his primary concern and special interest is advocacy planning, because plans are nothing, planning is everything. Word and marble by DeWitt Eisenhower, former US President, ably quoted by the author to further buttress his point. The author, who took the audience through the reasons why he undertook the advocacy for change in the housing, urban planning and development sectors in Nigeria, regretted what he termed the abysmal failure of successive governments in the country, military and civilian, to muster the political will to create the enabling environment for the provision of affordable housing for Nigeria's teeming population. Despite, to again quote him, the stupendous financial resources at the disposal of governments both at the state and federal level, especially when other less endowed countries such as Sri Lanka, one of the poorest countries of the world, and South Korea have made it possible for the poorest of the poor in their societies to realize their age-long dreams of becoming home owners. The author, Kubman Abiodun, among other things, drew the attention of the audience to the fact that most Nigerian cities are still lagging behind because of shoddy planning. The author ended his remarks by asking all of us to endeavor to emulate examples of good governance and moral rectitude of governments around the world, so that our planning advocacy is not compromised by so-called professional practitioners who engage in deliberate violation of set rules for pecuniary gains.
The crop of urban planning practitioners in both the public and private sectors that government depends upon to effect a positive change so that Nigerian cities are more livable, sustainable, investment-friendly, and attractive to international tourism. Two, solution-based participatory planning have not rendered acceptable level of professional service. This is an indictment that we need to tell the truth. Our police may not like it, but let us identify our failure or our shortcomings so that we can improve on them.
Town planner Steve On, who is the national president of the National Institute of Town Planners, who was also represented, gave a goodwill address in which he commended the author for his insight. In his submission, Senator Bukar Abba Ibrahim, three-time governor of Yobe State, chairman, Senate Committee on Lands, Housing and Urban Development, an accomplished quantity surveyor, who engaged the audience in very witty and light-hearted anecdotes to enliven the atmosphere, was full of praises for the yeoman's efforts embarked upon by the author, YACOOB ABIODUN, in seeking a better environment for housing and the practice of urban planning and development in Nigeria. He stated emphatically that from his days as governor in Yobe State, he has always been a strong advocate for free housing for the citizens of Nigeria, and this he exemplified by being the first governor in Nigeria to construct 6,000 housing units, which he shared to civil servants in the low-income earners category in Yobe State. Senator Bukar Abba Ibrahim looks forward most eagerly to the day when Nigerians who have no income at all can become owners of decent accommodation, as stipulated in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Never mind the bogus idea about Nigerians saying senators are earning plenty of money. A senator gets less than 1 million naira salary per month, but there are allowances we are not supposed to talk about. I was the first executive governor who declared home ownership or owner-occupier system in Nigeria, where I sold over 6,500 houses to civil servants, and they lived in them at the time, at the lower price of when constructed houses, and they are still living in those houses.
In Chief Bode Fadashe, a geological consultant and CEO of Geothemes Limited's earth-shaking revelation, in his remarks, which shook the entire hall to its very foundation, he narrated vividly how the master plan of some areas in Agboyi and Adelabu areas of Surulere in Lagos were compromised by greedy and selfish government officers who deliberately engaged in violation of set rules to line their pockets at the expense of the innocent citizens of those areas who today suffer the negative effects of this anomalous situation. How does one explain a situation where the master plan of a given area, statutorily approved by government, is compromised simply because one powerful person has bribed his way through to erect either a school, an eatery, or any other building not approved for that purpose? That's indeed corruption and impunity taken to very ridiculous heights. The sad reality is that even till today, such untoward practices still prevail. What do we do and where do we go from here?
We will focus on Agboyi Avenue. The original design of this road, according to Chief Peters, was to run from the town at Adelabu Street all the way to the yet to be built Oshodi Expressway in those days. The proposed distance of some 2 or 3 kilometers. This was a plan generated in the 60s and 70s. Today, Agboyi Avenue stops abruptly some 500 meters from the Adelabu Street town, simply because someone with might and perhaps the muscle of the authorities behind it built a house right on this avenue. This house stands tall as I speak. The dream of the LDB engineers, architects, town planners, surveyors, and all other shareholders remains unfulfilled till today.
The very intellectually enriching book launch ended with donations by friends, associates, and well-wishers of the author, YACOOB ABIODUN, Senator Benga Shafa, an in-law to the author and Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Lagos State Governor, and Senator Oluremi Tinubu, both of them represented, and Governor Olusegun Mimiko of Ondo State led the way. That aspect of the program was very masterfully coordinated by Mr. Wole Okufulure, the worthy boss of the celebrant of all times, who, to quote the author again, never for once took a hard stance against his penchant for writing in the media, even when his views were critical of government, which were both serving at the time. It's hearty congratulations to Town Planner Extraordinaire and one-man intellectual riot squad, YACOOB ABIODUN Kubman, alias Tito, on the success of this book launch.